Hello and welcome to episode 7. One day, I was looking out of my window at a crow on a neighbor's roof. This crow appeared to be staring rather blankly at the sky, and it didn't seem as perky and alert as crows usually are. In a little while, a couple of other crows arrived and proceeded to feed this crow, and I realized it was a newly fledged crow. Describing this to my wife later, I said it didn't know yet what a crow was supposed to do. A few days later, on a call with our adult son who lives in another country, he told us that the shrimp he keeps in a home aquarium had babies and said the babies were just sitting around because, to quote his words, they hadn't learnt to shrimp yet. I excitedly told him of my crow, which I now described in his way as not having learned to crow yet. Almost all living creatures are born with only basic behaviors pre wired. Slowly, they acquire more, helped along by parents, environment, other creatures in the local area, and so on, until they have the full set by the time they reach adulthood. The more complex the animal, the longer this takes. That's why I said almost all animals and creatures, because microorganisms like bacteria have a very small set of behaviors that they can deploy almost immediately. So there is not any state that we can call an infant state at all. So, what really makes a crow, or a sparrow? Is there a basic crow essence because of which it turns out that way? No, obviously not. Then what is it? If we can trace life back to its origins and look at the whole tree of life, you can see how, from just basic chemical building blocks, life began and branched out over millions and billions of years through a series of accumulations of features, components, and behaviors until it became all the complexity that we see now. On this tree of life, the branch that contains the primates to which humans belong is one of the newer ones. But in every animal that lives today, the entire history, right back to the original unicellular organism, is encoded. Some creatures, like cows, for example, are actually coalitions. They have in their stomachs bacteria because of which they can digest grass. Without these, they will die. There is not even a pure, unique cowy cow. A cow is the result of a long chain of random events, and a calf newly born has to acquire the behaviors of a cow to become a fully functioning cow and complete the process. There is no essence of a cow that the universe contains that is instantiated in a biological substrate and becomes a cow. So too is a human being a result of a long chain of random events. And a newly born human, like a newly fledged crow, has to acquire over a long period of infancy the behaviors that result in a recognizable adult. You are the result of a long process, not a sudden birth. If you have watched the process, say in your own children, or a friend's or a relative's child, you know the truth of this, that they took shape slowly. We are as much products of physics, chemistry, and biology as all other creatures and cannot claim to contain some mysterious essence like a soul that makes each of us what we are and because of which we do what we do. In fact, just like a cow, We are actually a coalition. The human body has as many microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, and archaea, as there are human cells. There are trillions of them. If you eliminated them all, say by consuming some powerful antibiotics, you would die. We depend on these citizens of our bodies for metabolism, immunity, vitamin production, neurotransmitters that affect our brain, and so on. You can look this up, the human microbiome. So, in what sense are you even a pure human? Once you understand evolutionary biology, it becomes impossible to sustain the fiction of all living things having been created by a supernatural creator. To religious people, Darwin is a devil. If you rewind the universe, there was a time when there were no planets, no stars, nothing. Out of this nothing arose everything over a period of some 14 billion years. At the very core of what we call a human is emptiness. To understand this, to see this really deeply, does not result in despair. It actually results in amazement, wonder. Just as I said in an earlier episode, to see that a rainbow is constructed by our vision and to understand how it happens will only deepen the wonder. Not only this, to see how we come to be here makes us realize that fundamentally every human is constructed in the same way and functions in the same way. Race, nationality, language are all just the clothes, the coverings. You cannot find the Frenchness in a French person or the Spanishness in a Spanish person. In some countries where several languages are spoken, say Nigeria, which has Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo, even less can you find the Hausa-ness, the Yoruba-ness, or the Igbo-ness by, say, a medical test or a CT scan. Yet, such countries have had ill will between different language groups, prejudices, and biases, even leading to war. This is why it is so important to understand how our intuitions of an essence of being, a core of identity, is a delusion, a dangerous one. Let's summarize this episode. Point number one: no living creature has some core essence that results in its identity. Point number two: every being is the result of chance events over millions of years. Point number three: creatures are not born as complete in themselves, but go through further development, so the process continues until complete. Point number four: creatures are very often combinations. Cows and humans are coalitions of microorganisms and the hosts. This further renders the concept of a unique individual rather hazy and ill defined. Point number five: tracing the universe backwards, we arrive only at nothingness. So, at our core is that same nothingness. Point number six: to give space to the idea of an essence, a uniqueness at the core of a person, is a dangerous delusion that leads to separation and even hatred. Point number seven: seeing deeply into the reality of our being need not be terrifying. It is actually wonderful to see this and can begin to result in a greater love and acceptance as opposed to ill will and prejudice. In our next episode, we will go deeper into how our delusions arise in the first place. For today's practice, as you wind down your day, reflect on the following. Imagine a child born in France to French speaking parents. This child is given to a Japanese speaking couple living in Japan. The child grows up speaking fluent Japanese and lives exactly like a Japanese. Can we look inside this person and find what we call the original Frenchness? Can it be detected? Can it be recovered somehow? Now apply this thought experiment to your own self. If you had been educated in a different school, had different friends, chosen a different field of study and a career, lived in a different part of the country or even the world, what can we say is the unchanging essence of you?